We failed.
Missouri executed a death row inmate named Marcellus Williams by lethal injection. Now, Williams was put to death over the 1998 murder of newspaper reporter Felicia Gale, and the execution coming hours after the U.S. Supreme Court denied a stay of execution just a day after the state's governor and the Supreme Court both denied clemency to Williams as well. And all this after a prosecutor from the original trial said Williams was innocent, claiming no evidence actually tied him to the crime.
In Missouri, Marcellus Williams, a man who was on death row, was killed by the state after a 1998 conviction. He was accused of stabbing Felicia Gale in a St. Louis suburb. The modern-day lynching was carried out despite the family's wishes to have his sentence commuted to life in prison. And that would be without parole. Via the Associated Press, the state's Supreme Court nullified that agreement.
The number one thing I want to say, my father was a very intelligent man, a very beautiful man. He had a connected spirit. Anybody who know about that, I know what I'm talking about. He had a very well-connected spirit.
Williams' son spoke with VOP News after his father's death. Per The Intercept, the state attorney general, Andrew Bailey, seen here. Well, Bailey's office cleared the way for this execution.
He was convicted by 11 white jurors and 1 black juror after the prosecution was allowed to preemptively strike out 6 other prospective black jurors. Williams always maintained his innocence. The jurors, the prosecutor, and the murder victim's family all opposed Williams' execution.
David Wright, in mid-August, a St. Louis County Circuit Court judge approved a deal between Williams and the county's prosecuting attorney, Wesley Bell, that would have resentenced Williams to life in prison. Bailey scoffed at the deal and intervened to stop it.
What was the main evidence against him? And could you talk about the advanced DNA testing or what it's revealed about the murder weapon?
Yes. So Mr. Williams was convicted based on what we know is a leading cause of wrongful conviction, which is essentially informant testimony. So this is a murder where there were no leads for months and months. And then at some point, the police suggested to the victim's husband that he should offer a reward. And it was only then, after a $10,000 reward had been offered, that the first informant came forward, a jailhouse informant, who said also that he wouldn't testify until he got the money. The information he provided was information that was essentially out in the public sphere from the newspaper, but he also provided information about another informant, a woman named Laura Asaro, who had had connections to Marcellus Williams in the past. She also not only had incentivized by the reward money, but the police forced her to talk by picking her up on her own warrants and saying, we can arrest you and charge you with these crimes unless you help us here. At the time of the crime, there was a number of pieces of forensic evidence, including bloody footprints and hairs found at the crime scene, all of which exclude Marcellus Williams. In 2015, however, Mr. Williams requested additional DNA testing of the murder weapon, which was a knife found still protruding from the victim's body. That DNA testing was performed. Male DNA was found on that murder weapon, and it excludes Marcellus Williams. He is not the person who left that DNA on the knife. But on the day before the evidentiary hearing, new DNA testing came in that showed that the DNA on that knife could be consistent with the trial prosecutor's DNA and the trial prosecutor's investigator. At the evidentiary hearing, we've now learned that they mishandled that knife. They touched it without gloves in 2001 repeatedly, essentially destroying any potential probative value this critical evidence would have, which is what the prosecutor now also concedes was a constitutional violation.
And yet it was this man, Mike Parsons, who declined clemency to Williams. Incredibly, this is the same man who would sign a bill in 2022 vowing to protect life. His statement would conclude on the passing of said bill, "Today we have won our fight to protect innocent life." How about that? As mentioned by the late comedian George Carlin once, boy, these conservatives are really something, aren't they? They're all in favor of the unborn. They will do anything for the unborn, but once you're born, you're on your own. Indeed, you are. They cannot call themselves pro-life when they are responsible for killing people. How do you reason with that? It is utter and sheer hypocrisy to say you protect life, and then under your watch, you allow someone to die. What troubles me as well is this. Via Lillian Segura, the Dems even scrubbed their anti-death penalty stance from their platform. I mean, what is happening? Have Republicans gone so far right that Dems now want to go a little right, some right, a lot right? And what is happening? Why would you take this away from your own platform? It's insane to me. It really does say something, though, when a billionaire like Richard Branson, okay, takes a position further to the left than the 2024 Dems. That should say something to you. But here we are. Branson took out a full-page ad in the Kansas City Star where he would write on Twitter, urging Governor Mike Parsons to halt the execution of an innocent man. Of course, Parson would not. Tricia Rojo Bushnell, who we heard on Democracy Now!, she is of the Midwest Innocence Project and also an attorney. She released this statement. Tonight, Missouri will execute an innocent man. The victim's family opposes his execution. Jurors who originally sentenced him to death now oppose his execution. The prosecutor's office that convicted and sentenced him to death has now admitted they were wrong and zealously fought to undo the conviction and save Mr. Williams' life. That is not justice, and we must all question any system that would allow this to occur. And I concur with that. What frustrates me the most about this is a few things. Number one, although the attorneys will deny it, the reporting on the ground has found that they limited the jury to one black person, and when the process was going on, the prosecution at the time did not allow 6 jurors who are black to be on the jury. What Tricia Rojo Bushnell also mentioned in one piece of video that we played was that it was later admitted to be true that those investigating the crime scene played around with is the wrong word, but did their jobs by not wearing gloves, and in turn tainted the crime scene, tainted the murder weapon. That should say something. They also, at one point, as I was reading along in this story, that, well, we thought that the killer used gloves, so it wouldn't have mattered. You're talking about a man's life. Whether you feel one way or another, there are so many red flags here that for this to occur is an injustice. You should be questioning everything. You should be questioning what sort of system you'd like to live in, where hypothetically an innocent person can die by the crowd that says that they are there to protect life, and under the rule, a hand steel-fisted rule that will take out anybody just so they could replace that cell with another body that could potentially be set up. I did a piece previously on Dean Smith and how he showed his team what it means to be an abolitionist, and I am one. And until we right this wrong, where clearly we are so far in the wrong, it will be an injustice to everybody. Because I said it a few moments ago, and I will say it again. What sort of system do you want to live in where potentially an innocent life can be behind bars for decades, serving the prison industrial complex, and then have that man's life end because a few people said so? Think about it.